Hello, I'm Anthony. Welcome to the basic guide to templates in Cubase. A template is basically what you would imagine it to be. It's how you want Cubase to look every time you start writing a piece of music. What you can see in front of you here is my standard template. So every time I begin writing a song, a fully featured song with vocals and bass and guitar and all of the stuff that you would expect to see, this is exactly how every instance of Cubase is going to look for me. This means that templates are really important. You should use them. They're a massive time saving, but we do have a bit of a chicken and egg situation as far as me explaining how my template works, because if you don't understand all of the concepts behind all of these various tracks and configuration options, none of it's going to make very much sense to you. And so what I've decided to do today is to show you the various different templates that I have in my system and have a general conversation about the principles behind which something gets into one of my templates, and then hopefully you'll be able to use that information when you go on to build your own templates. Furthermore, for all of my patrons and channel members, I'll make available all of my standard templates. Check out the links below. It's also a fabulous way to help support my channel. So without further ado, let's get underway. Now, as I said, this is my standard template. It's the one that basically contains everything that I would need in order to be able to write a song. I have vocalist tracks and guitarists and something for my drums and keyboards, all the various different zones, areas of music, all funneled into their own master tracks. You can see some group tracks down here. There's a load of stuff in here that maybe you don't know how to do those things yet. That's absolutely fine. And so use whatever information you do have to hand to start building your template. And as you learn new areas of functionality, you can bake those in. Now, this leads me on to another general theme. If we have a look at my hub, in the recording tab of your Cubase hub, you'll see all of your templates, and you can see I've got 4 of them. As a result of the preparation for this video today, as I was comparing each of the templates and thinking about what they do, I've decided to actually get rid of one of them. The classic synth template is going to get deleted today. In fact, I'm going to do it right now. I can simply right click, I can say delete, and it's gone. As a matter of interest, this is where your templates are stored. So if you download my templates, if you're a channel member, you'll basically put them in this equivalent project templates folder of your configuration area in your system. Let's get rid of it. The hub doesn't update. It has actually gone. If I cancel out of the hub and come back in, you can see that it just doesn't auto refresh, but it has gone. So these are the 3 templates that we're actually going to talk about today. The reason I deleted that template is because I like to keep this list as small as possible. If you make a change in your process flow and there's a part of the user interface that you want to basically have look different, odds are 99 times out of 100, you want it to look different in all of your projects. Let me show you an example of that. Let's say, as a matter of principle, that you want to have the status line. Is it visible? No, it's not visible. I'll just move out of the way. There we are, status line. One of the configuration options you can have permanently visible. If I engage status line, you can see that this new information strip has just appeared in Cubase. If I now save that template, every new project that I create using the standard template will contain that information. In fact, let's do that. I'm just going to overwrite this template right now. I'm going to say save as template. This is currently my standard template, so I'm going to say OK. It's going to ask me if I want to overwrite the file, say yes. And that's it now. That status line will be visible every single time I create a new project using this template. Let's prove that. I'm going to close this project down. I haven't saved this project yet, so there's actually no information on my hard drive, but the template has been saved. So now when I go back to my hub and I select my standard template, this is in the recording tab. I can say create. It's going to ask me where I want to create the folder. Now, because I'm just messing around today, I'm creating everything in the test folder, but I don't necessarily have to. If I'm writing a song here, I might go to my current projects folder. Here's a folder that I created just a few minutes ago. I could create it there instead. It really doesn't matter. I can't talk to you while these projects are loading because my microphone cuts out, but I was just about to say it doesn't matter where I've specified that location as, because until I save this project, nothing's actually going to get committed to the hard drive. And here you can see the status line. That's a permanent change that's been made to every one of the projects that I open using the standard template. Now then, let's close the standard template down and reopen one of the other templates. This time I'm going to choose my Electronica template. As you'll see, this is a much simpler template. Let's open this one. No status line. So your entire configuration view, everything that you can see in the user interface, the width of all of your panes, these different visible project zones, the number of tracks that you've got, everything that you can see. There are very, very few things that don't get saved in a template when you save one. I saved that status line update to my standard template. It hasn't propagated to the others. And for that reason, I try to keep the number of templates that I use to the minimum possible. That's why I deleted that fourth one that we started off with today. I used to have a template called Classic Synths, and I would use that template if maybe I've done a series, a tutorial or a video on an old classic synth from history. I might create a project that only uses that synth, multiple instances of that thing, 10 different copies of the Minimoog or whatever. So I don't need any rhythm tracks, any vocals, guitars. It's a really, really simple project. It turns out to be almost identical to the Electronica template. In fact, the only difference was that the Classic Synths template didn't have this rhythm group track. So if I take that away, I've basically now got the Classic Synths template. That difference alone, that one extra group track, was not enough reason to justify me having a whole extra template file. Because now if I change my process flow like I did with that status line update earlier, I need to go into every one of these template files and update that change there too. Otherwise they start diverging. Now in preparation for this video today, I actually found a couple of instances of exactly that in this Electronica template. If you look in the mix console down below, can you see this toolbar? This can be toggled on or off with this show hide mix console toolbar. So as I'm clicking this, you can see appearing and disappearing. I like to have that toolbar visible all the time. Now it turns out that as I was comparing each of these templates and preparing for this video today, I noticed that my Electronica template didn't have this set. It was actually disabled, looked like that. Now I kind of wish I'd left it because it would have been a nice example. What I actually did was re-engage it, head up into Save As Template, clicked the Electronica template and overwrote it, which I'm not going to do because I just deleted that rhythm master track. If I overwrite this Electronica template now, I'm going to lose that information. My template's going to be permanently changed. So you need to be very, very careful when you're updating template tracks. I'm just going to slam the brakes on there and we're going to go through that in a little bit more clarity. I'm going to close this project down without making any changes, throw it all away, get back to the hub. Let's reopen that Electronica template. So here we are with our freshly opened template. This is pretty much the only time you should ever make updates to your standard templates. When you've just loaded that template in and you're looking at the project completely fresh, you haven't made any changes whatsoever. Because what's highly likely is that as your system evolves, as your templates evolve, you have a single change to make. Let's use that example that we were talking about before with the added status line. Here it is again, moving my head out the way. It's so everything's backwards and forwards. I'm just turning the status line on, engaging the status line, and now I've made that one change to the template. Since I loaded it, nothing else is different. This is the point where you update your templates. Overwrite the Electronica template, say OK. That job's now done. Close the project down, recreate a new project. You can see I can do this as many times as I want. I'm having no impact on my system. I haven't saved anything to disk. And here's the status line, now permanently baked into every new Electronica project I create. I'll take this back out again later. I don't actually want it there. So that's really important to bear in mind. If you're going to make an update to a template file, make absolutely sure that you haven't made any other changes because everything is remembered. Cubase remembers pretty much every click you make. So let's have a look at this Electronica template for a moment and just kind of glean a few bits of information from it. What have I got? Well, I've got a split screen. I like my project zone to be split in two. That's from the project options, divide track list. I have that engaged on all of my templates. There it is. In the upper zone, I have two markers. one for my bookmarks. I can move these around, and I've got keyboard shortcuts. If I press recall 9, then the song marker jumps to exactly that point. My harmonic info marker is simply where I put information. You can see I always start all of my projects at bar 5. That's just a personal choice. And by default, they all start out as C major. Obviously, when I actually start writing the piece of music, I'm going to update that. But it's there right out of the gate. I can create new markers and create information for myself to remind myself that this is where the chorus starts. Time signature and tempo tracks, really obvious. And then I have some simple routing tracks in my upper zone as well. I'm not going to go into the complexities of how my routing solution works today because that's beyond the topic of today's conversation. So I've got that stuff set up by default. I don't have to worry about creating my master bus every time I create a new project. In the lower zone, this is where all of my song information lives. And for my electronic projects, I'm only really interested in synthesizers and rhythm. So I have 2 primary divisions for those audio routing solutions. And there you can see the 2 group tracks. Let's close that down and jump back to the empty project again, the simplest of the 3 templates. And now hopefully it's starting to dawn a little bit clearer what templates are useful for. This is a different kind of system. This would be a template that I might use if I'm literally just loading a synthesizer. I want to hear it. I don't want anything else at all. I'm not interested in writing a piece of music. This template doesn't even have a master bus, something that I ordinarily wouldn't dream of considering. I use a master bus output on every single piece of music that I write, but it's not here because that's not what the empty template is all about. This thing loads faster than any of the other templates, and it's got no fluff whatsoever. To be absolutely honest with you, I should probably delete the marker tracks from it as well. You know what? I'm actually going to do that right now. I've just decided to update this template live because I should at least be consistent in the advice I'm giving. This is my simplest possible project, and so I'm not going to have any bookmark markers with it. So I can now say save as template. There's my empty template, just got even simpler. It's very often quite difficult to have absolute clarity of thought on this stuff. And so when I'm preparing for a video like this, I use it as an opportunity to really think very carefully exactly how do I want my template system to work. Because ordinarily you don't give it that much thought. It's on a much lower kind of priority thread. Okay, I'm really pleased with that. Let's close that template down. I don't need to save the project. Saving the template has got nothing to do with saving the project information. The important stuff's already been remembered. I can just throw this away now. Let's jump back up to my standard template. This has by far the most information in it. And there's that status line, which is starting to tilt me now. I'll have to do that as soon as I turn the camera off. Let's have a chat about some of the stuff that's going on in here without necessarily diving into too much of the detail. It's not just what you can see that's stored in a template. If I open my mix console, for example, the way that this mix console looks is also configuration information. But every time you create a new project, your visibility configuration options, which is chosen from this toolbox here, is blank. But as you can see, my configuration options aren't blank. I have Anthony's mix config. That's because I've saved that as my template. I've created a new configuration using this feature. Okay, we're not talking about that specifically today, but it's a configuration option that I've enabled in Cubase, and I've configured it exactly how I want. And then when I've got all of that stuff set up and I've saved my configuration and it's a part of my project, I've then updated my template, and that information then gets baked into that template. And from that point onwards, that configuration information will carry along with you for every new project that you create. So in that regard, here's another thing to think about. If you're going to have multiple templates, as you can see, I've got 3, you need some way to manage the organization of those templates so that when you make a change, you can save that change in all 3 of those systems. Now, with something like this configuration option for the mix console, there are quite a few steps to go through in order to save all of that information. All of that might have taken me 10 to 15 minutes. Once I've made all of those changes, if that gets saved as a template and then I close that project down, I've lost all of that information. If I load up a new template, if I load up my Electronica template, I'll have to go through every one of those steps again. Now, in some instances, like when we added the status info line, no big deal. Takes 10 seconds to go into the status option, enable that configuration option, resave your template, jobs are good. And so in that particular case, it's easiest to close each project down, reopen a project with the new template, move on, do that 3 times. When I was making those changes to the mix console, however, that was a much bigger process. I went through multiple different stages when I was configuring all of that information. And now I've got a problem. I need to bake that into each of my 3 templates. For this reason, I have a hierarchical system on my template structure. In other words, the standard template contains everything that both the electronica and the empty template contain as well. And I know what the differences are. So if I do something like implement a brand new configuration option in my system, when I configured the mix console for the first time and used this configuration option, that was brand new information. I knew that I could do that in the context of my standard template, and this is exactly what I did. I loaded up my standard template, went into the mix console, made all of the changes that I wanted, did everything, saved the template as the standard template. From that point onwards, I know the difference between this and the electronica template. The electronica template is a strict subset of my standard template. I can, for instance, delete all of these tracks and these 3 tracks as well. And there's actually one other change between the different template types as well. For the electronica templates, I don't have my guitar input visible. I've disengaged visible input channels, and that's it. I've basically just reverse engineered my electronica template. From this point, I could now safely save this as my electronica template, and I've carried along all of those mix console options. You see all of the stuff in here, it's still there. Once I've done that to my electronica template, I can do exactly the same for my empty template. These 2 tracks and tempo, in fact all of these now, because I've just made that change, haven't I? If I throw away all of those tracks, I've now just reverse engineered my empty template. They're fundamentally all the same. The information that I want to see in Cubase is absolutely consistent all the time. If I want to see the status info line, which I don't, but it's there, if I want to see that status info line, I want to see it all the time. I don't want the Cubase constantly changing its vision, its visibility options, the commands in all of the different toolbars, all of that's configurable information. Once I've configured my toolbar, I want it to be absolutely consistent. And so having this kind of hierarchical cascading setup for your templates, where you have one template that is bigger and a strict superset, which means it contains everything that every other template does plus more. If you employ that methodology, you make big changes to your standard template, you can more easily propagate that down. Of course, you do need a list of all of those changes. I happen to have written it down again in preparation for this video today. I wrote down the changes between those different templates, and so it's absolutely fresh in my mind, and I really understand what I'm doing at the moment. But in 3 months' time, I'll have forgotten it all again, and I'll be using this stuff completely intuitively, and when I come to create a new project, I'm just going to know, do I want a simple electronic project or a fully fledged song project? I'll make that decision then and not really think about templates at all. So if you're in that space, if you're designing your templates and you're thinking actively about it, really do that. Really think exactly, how do I want Cubase to look? And then bake all of that information in to whatever you choose to call. I call it my standard template. But whatever you choose to make your most complicated project, do all of the work there and then reverse engineer back to your other templates. Of course, if you have kind of completely different personalities, if you're writing an acoustic piece, for instance, you want Cubase to look fundamentally different to if you're writing a heavy metal piece, fine. You do you, that's absolutely fine. Create your templates completely from scratch, but make a note of what those differences are, because if you subsequently change your mind and you evolve your process flow, like I just did kind of temporarily with my status line, you need to remember to update that in all of your templates. Well, that all became a little bit philosophical, didn't it? Hope you enjoyed the video today and found something useful in it. And if you did, please hit like and subscribe to my channel. Helps me out with the YouTube stuff. I'll see you next time. Thanks very much.